Okay. Well, my mother came from County Meath, so that's no connection with Waterford. But my father was born in Portlaw and grew up in the manor. And his mother was a Jackson, and the Jacksons were business people at the Carstons down in John Street. And they had a pub. Before that, they had a milling business, and they go back anywhere the whole way to 1749. So that's very, very old. And on my father's side, my grandfather came from Tipperary. So that's a typical Ryan name. Really, my memories go back. I can't remember John Street. My father started his business in 1921. First of all, he started as a shop assistant in Bell's on the Quay, which older people would remember vaguely. There used to be a big bell hanging out over the footpath.
What did they sell?
They were chemists. They were manufacturing chemists. They had a factory further down the Quay. They were quite big. They were owned by Westcott Pitt, who had a house in Ferrybank, big house. And he worked for them. He went to England for a short time, came back, and eventually, he founded the first shop assistants trade union in Waterford back in those days, in the days when you could be fired for being in a trade union. So that's a long tradition. And he started his business in the manor, in John Street, when he rented a shop, and it succeeded. And after that, or during that time, he started a polish factory by buying a couple of buildings. There was a laneway running down the side of the building. It's now a baby shop, mother and baby shop. And there was a laneway running down the side. There was a row of houses down there. And he bought one of those houses and he started making polish in it. And had a polish factory, all done by hand by himself, one helper, I think. And eventually that grew, and he got two partners, Nicholas Walton and Paddy Breen, and they opened a proper big polish factory across the road of what is now the Casbah. That eventually grew to the extent that they had to build a purpose-built factory in New Street behind, all in that same area all the time. And they became Kiwi Polish. And they were very well known for a long time. He died in 1955, and my mother ran the business. I was 16 or 17 at the time. So she had a young family and a business to run or to survive, to keep it going, which she did very well. And it grew from that on. Then we gradually grew bigger, and they moved down to Broad Street, and then they moved from Broad Street down to Bernstrand Street. And I came in at that point. And I took over eventually. My mother died in 1969. And we bought behind it the Tom Vereker's bottling shed. We bought beside it Welch's grocer shop, which a lot of old people would remember. And we bought we kept expanding it all the time. And then we moved to Kilkenny, and then to Kilkenny and Clonmel, and eventually to Dublin, much later. That's as far as our business is concerned, that's enough to say.
And when did you move then to the old Savoy?
The business my father had was Ryan's Decorating Centre, and it was selling wallpaper paint, curtains, tiles, lighting, carpets, all that sort of stuff. And in 1970, I got married in 1969. My wife came from Dublin, and we were in the business of, we were at the stage of, we had enough money and a bit of spare money, so we decided we'd try and start a new business so that we'd have a leg in two different camps in case anything went wrong. And I wanted to start a travel agency, and she wanted to start a bookshop. We argued, and she won as always. And we started a small bookshop in Mitre Street. We bought a pub that had closed down years ago, and we bought it from Mickey. He used to be known as Mickey the Nut. And he owned the Nutshell, which is another old shop that was there. And he inherited it from his aunt, I think. And we bought it, and we started a very, very small shop. And again, that grew. We bought beside it and behind it, and it was about, I'd say, 7 or 8 times the size it started at. And eventually, we needed to either expand or get out because we didn't need to make it bigger. So its survival was assured no matter who came to town. And these were in the days now when bookshops are unusual. And we bought the Savoy and turned it into what it is today. And that was, of course, the makings of our reputation. And again, we opened in Kilkenny and Clonmel and Wexford and in Naas, the latest one. So the latest being 15 years ago. We had a plan for expansion for maybe another 4 shops. But the recession came and we put a stop to all expansion. Survival was the name of the game then, which we did. And things. Then, of course, we had the internet coming and all of that. The downloading of books more than the selling of books over the internet. And that was a huge threat to us. And it still is to some extent, but not as much as we thought. We honestly wondered, would we survive as a business? Now we're convinced we will, but only by changing and adjusting all the time, you know. So that's a survey of us.
Absolutely, but let's go back a little bit, because you jumped through that very fast, right? Much faster than expected. Let's go back to your dad for a second. Do you have any memory of Bell's?
I remember the shop, but my father was gone out for a long, long time.
Do you remember going into it?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't. Funnily enough, one of the men who used to do deliveries for Bell's with a horse and cart, his son married my sister, Bill Cull. He became the manager of the Irish Independent, and he worked in Bell's the same time as my father did. It was only years later we discovered that. I think he was dead even at that stage. But there was a link, and he used to deliver to the house I live in now, he told me more than once, you know. But, sorry, but I don't have any memories of Bell's.
And your dad, you know, the polish business that he started off, did he learn that through working for Bell's?
I'd say so. He managed the Bell's oil and colour section, and that's how all that came about. Mixing your own paint in those days, making French polish. I learned all those things when I was very young. He died in 55. I left school at the age of 15, and I was taught how to make French polish and blend colours and all that sort of stuff, which of course today is called wasted talent because everything was ready made. But he had great foresight, I have to say, and he began. I see the book centre as my version of his polish factory, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And it's very interesting too, because you said that he was a trade unionist.
Yes, he founded it with a few others. Charlie Henderson told me this. Now, Charlie is dead a long time. He was the father of Bishop Henderson in England, Salisbury or somewhere, I'm not sure exactly where, but he was a bishop of an Irish bishop. But he founded that union with a group of men when he worked in Bell's. And they got away with it because, you know, in those days, that was about 1915, I think, I'm not sure of the exact details, but he was proud of that. And I saw kind of slightly left-wing tendencies, but not too much.
A bit like yourself. And for him to go and set up his own business.
Yeah, in 1921.
He must have been very enterprising then, wasn't he?
He was. He must have been. I don't remember him that well because I only worked with him for about 2 or 3 years before he died, and I was in school up to that. But yeah, he must have been. He must have been. The polish he made was called Black Beauty boot polish and Xena floor polish. We sold that for years. I can remember all that.
And the Kiwi factory or the place.
Yeah.
Was that just a franchise that he took, or was that?
No, he built that factory. They built that factory, purpose-built it for that job, and it's one of the factories now that run at the top of High Street. The smallish factories as factories go, but I don't know which one it is. I should know, but I don't. Christy Healan used to be the manager of it.
Oh, was that brand his own brand, Kiwi?
Not Kiwi, no. Black Beauty boot polish and Xena floor polish was what they made.
Okay.
But then they got the license to make Kiwi for Britain and Ireland, so they exported a lot of it to England. became quite a big factory at that stage.
And did that place go on fire at some stage? Or was there a fire?
No, not in my memory anyway.
Or maybe it was the Bell's place went on fire.
The big fire that I remember from my youth was across the road from the book centre. The book centre wasn't there at the time, which is now the AIB. There was a paint and oil and colour shop like my father's, which was further down the road. And that went on fire, and they talked about the paint being bubbling off the front doors of the houses across the road because of the heat. Because an oil and colour store going on fire is a big thing, you know. I don't know how, that's an awful long time ago now.
And talking about that time way back from when you were a child, by the way, where did you go to school?
De La Salle, St. Nicholas and De La Salle College.
Okay. And then you said you left school at about 15?
Yeah, after the intersearch.
Okay.
My father was diagnosed with cancer, and in those days it was a death sentence. So he lasted about 2 years, and I was taken out of school. I had just completed the junior search, the inter-search as it was then, and I was taken in to learn the business while he was still there, and he lasted 2 or 3 years, and I went, and then he died, and my mother ran.
Do you think that was as a result of working with all these chemicals?
I wouldn't think so. I doubt it, but I don't know. But, no, God knows. He smoked a pipe all the time.
And your mother must have been fairly formidable.
She was very enterprising and very formidable. She took the business by the horns, and really, I think reps and people used to hate her, I think, because she'd fight you over a tiny amount of money, because she had to survive at that stage, you know. And she's the one who pulled the business up. This was now 1955, after the war. Things, no money around, nothing. People still in their bare feet, some of the kids and all that. So it was a different era altogether. And I remember as well that cycling to work every day. I actually have a memory, just a once off for some reason it comes back to me, of cycling home and seeing the headlines on the late editions of the evening papers, which used to come out at that stage, because the Irish Independent office was just there, which is now the front of the book centre. And then the man who was printing the late news on it was Bill Cull's son, Michael, who turned out to be my brother-in-law eventually. But I remember seeing the headlines about the revolution in Hungary, 1956, I think. And for some reason that comes back to me. And anyway, that's something about it.
And that time, I mean, we're talking about children not having shoes and stuff like that, but and I suppose it's one of the reasons why you make these films is that you've seen incredible changes, you know, from...
Oh, without question. Oh, gee, yes, the changes have been huge. Huge. If I think of driving down now, driving through the Apple Market, where my father's shop was, now it has a roof on it. And the work that's been done at the top of High Street, it's the top of New Street, by the city wall there. That's going to be fantastic, I think. You can now see the city wall properly, the remains of it. And the work that the present officials of the corporation, meaning Michael Walsh, Laura Power in his time, they're doing fantastic work, and they need to get credit for it.
But your childhood, there would be tenants all around Waterford?
There would. My father started his shop in John Street, moved to, was it Michael Street or John Street? John Street. He moved to Broad Street, and he moved to Michael Street and joined with my uncle, and they started a much bigger shop selling furniture as well, and they very nearly went bust, and he had to go backwards a bit, and he swapped shops with Hughes's, old man Hughes. Now I don't remember Teddy Hughes, that came later, his son, but they had a grocery shop, and they swapped shops, so he got a smaller shop and he went to Broad Street. And that had a tenement over it. I remember there was a hall door and there was 3 stories of tenements above it, which he owned, but he never collected one penny rent in it. And my mother used to give out to him at night time at home, say, we're not too flush with money, and you should be getting some kind of rent. But he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't collect the rent from them because you couldn't. It was a terrible place. At least I think it was, looking back on it now. And he moved down. Eventually, a big pediment at the very top of the building fell down into the street, and the corporation closed the street around it, which would have killed the business anyway. So he took a loan again. He went to the bank refused him a loan because he was too old, and he went down to a different bank. Vincent O'Donoghue was the manager of it, Red O'Donoghue's father, and he gave him the money. So he saved the business, and he opened in Burnstown Street, and it thrived from that on. But these were tough times. So.
And Waterford at that time would have been very much, like there was merchant families and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, would you have any dealings with any, we say the Protestants, the Quakers, all that kind of?
No, we had good customers from them, certainly. But they tended, from my memory, to support their own, which was the tendency to do. And then the Catholics were the same, I suppose. There's an awful lot more Catholics, of course. But they tended to, whatever shops that were Protestant shops tended to be supported by the Protestants at that time. All that's gone now, of course, thanks be to God. But no, I had very little doings with them, from my memory. No.
No, but it's interesting how it was a bit kind of like separate, even though it's one small town.
Yeah, in a small town like that, there were certainly some very rich people. We were always okay for money, but never well off. Because even though we were in business in 1749, our family had a habit, going back over the generations, of dividing everything that was left between all the children, which meant it never accumulated. And that's the way it is, which is justice, I suppose, too.
But what I'm saying is that there would have been, you mentioned very well-off people in Waterford.
There would have been, of course, yeah.
And some very exclusive shops and all that kind of stuff.
There would have been, and very exclusive grocery shops, Mary's, and it used to be down at the end on the Mall.
Yeah, down the Ridge.
Double by the Ridge, exactly. And the one in O'Connell Street, Chapman's. These are all Protestant and very upmarket. Supported by everybody, though, not just by the Protestants. And there was very good, I suppose, very good relations. But we didn't know many Protestants because we were taught you didn't go into a Protestant church, you didn't join near a Protestant church. We thought someone might come out and grab you and make you a Protestant or something when we were young. But I never set foot in a Protestant church until much, much later. That was a terribly stupid and narrow-minded attitude.
Well, what about the business associations? Do they have any, say your mother, when she was running the business, would she have been involved in any business associations? No, I don't think she was, because she didn't have time. I mean, she had a family to rear and she had a business to run. I was helping her. That's all I was doing, though. I was more interested in gadding around. I mean, I was only 17 or 18 or 19 or 20, that sort of time. And it was much later that I really got down to business, if you like. I was a member of the Knights of St. Columbanus. How about that? That was the better off end of the Catholics. They were the Catholics trying to be Freemasons, if you like. And my father was in it. And I'd say it was a social thing, nothing to do with religion in the sense that it didn't worry. He had no strong views on religion. But I didn't last long in it. Its ethos wasn't for me. Okay. Well, was that an attempt, in a sense, to have a kind of a Catholic business brotherhood kind of thing? Or?
Yes, it's supported. It used to be very strongly supported by a few individuals, and they saw themselves as being not getting enough support from the Catholic community, and it was a Catholic Freemasonry. They were harmless, really. They didn't see themselves as that, but they were. But I couldn't live with that sort of mentality, so I think I was drummed out of it. I would have been drummed out if I hadn't gone out.
And then, just to talk about your childhood and running around Waterford and all that kind of stuff, I mean, would you remember many shops, other shops at that time that you used to go to?
Well, next door to us, and we moved down to Burnstown Street, that's when I came into it. My father died fairly soon afterwards. Next door was Welch's Grocers. On the other side, another grocer's, Tom Veriker. And further up the road, then you had the Lido Cafe. And then you had Wynn's, the butchers. which is now, it was Mary Coppinger's, and we bought it later to expand the book centre into the front, because we had very poor frontage on the book centre, considering the size of the building, and the Savoy Cinema then was there.
And the Savoy at one time was kind of very upmarket.
It was the better off of the cinemas, yeah. It was one and somethings to go upstairs to the expensive part. I remember that. You had to go there to be seen to be there, you see. The cafe, that's right, they had. And the Ladder Cafe was down the road, and the Odeon Cafe was across the road. And lots of cafes in those days.
Right now?
Yes, like now, yeah, different type altogether. Yeah. Woolworths, of course, was across the road, where Penny's is now. And Coles, of course, on the corner, and Coles further down. They dominated the shoe business. And Goffs, of course, we bought Goffs as well. We own that. That's now Starbucks.
And Goffs did leather work?
Leather, yes. Leather and foam plastic afterwards. But there were leather merchants, and Donald Goff ran it with his mother.
And what was the leather mostly used for? What was the leather used for?
Shoes, I suppose, or all sorts of things, probably. You get pieces of leather that cut you bits to fit something, or they're very good at their business in their way. But of course, it went out of date then. It became a dress shop, and then we bought it about 20 years ago, or more.
Come down this way, down Georgia Street.
Yeah, I wouldn't know this area so much now, funnily enough. I'm trying to think. Of course, the one that's there and still there is Flynn's the Butchers. They were there when I came, and they're still, you know. They must be the oldest shop in the place. And there was there's a yard, a big opening and a yard. People used to come into town and they had horses and carts, donkeys and carts more, and they'd go to these yards. Or there was another one on the car stands. There was Grady's yard. There was, anyway, a whole pile of them. And people, we used to deliver, when they come into us, they'd buy wallpaper or paint or oil or whatever it was, and we'd deliver it down to the yard, to their cart, donkey and cart. And that'd be tied up, eating, munching away to himself, and there'd be somebody in charge of that. And that yard that was down from, which is now, the place that's with the catalogue that sells it.
Argos. Near Argos.
Argos, yes. The Argos place and McDonald's. Those together made up that yard and the grocer shop. There was 3 grocer shops in a row there, and they closed down, and Darrers came in at the supermarket, and they roofed the whole place and turned the whole yard into a shop. And that went in behind us and all the others, and up as far as the Savoy. And years later, we bought half of that. When that closed down eventually, the Astral and McDonald's bought one part of it, and we bought the rest. And then that actually touched the wall of the Savoy. And when I bought the Savoy, I never knew that it existed. That we actually had a semicircle going from the frontage of Ryan's to the frontage of the book centre. A continuous circle at the back. I sold a slice of that later on, which broke the link, but didn't matter. That's not it, by the way.
And obviously the docks was very busy as well.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't be that much aware of it, but certainly the docks were busy and always in trouble. They always seemed to be on strike. Do you remember that? Waterford got a bad name for strikes, mainly because of the docks. Who's the fault, I don't know.
I think we broke records that strike. There was a strike going on for about 10 years.
There was, yeah, a terribly long one, that's true. And of course, going way back, you had the pig buyer strike. Remember that? There's still photographs of police escorting the pigs. So the British Tories would love that sort of image.
And speaking of politics and all that, you got involved in politics yourself, didn't you?
Oh, I did. I got involved in Fianna Fáil, and I was joined in 1960 something, and I was very involved in it for a long time.
I'm sorry, Sean, was your father and mother involved in politics at all?
No, never. He was asked once or twice, I'm told, to stand for the corporation by somebody, but I don't know who. But his tendency was Fianna Fáil, certainly, because I grew up with the Irish Press came to the house every day, and he was a shareholder in the Irish Press, so that would make, he must have been Fianna Fáil. He wouldn't buy shares in the Irish Press unless they were very strongly Fianna Fáil, because there was no money in it.
Well, it probably fits in with Tipperary as well, isn't it?
Sorry?
Fits in with Tipperary.
I suppose. His grandfather was a farmer in Tipperary, and but he, I suppose he put ideas of Fianna Fáil into my head all right. I joined it within a year or two. I was lucky in the sense that the big break came with Kevin Boland starting his new party, and some Fianna Fáil people left, Maurice Condon left, and I got onto the National Executive, and I was there for about 5 or 6 years. That was the biggest involvement I had. I became very friendly.
Which the PDs?
The PDs were later, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
PDs in 1980.
Sorry, what was the first group you were involved in?
Fianna Fáil.
Okay, so you were involved on their...
I was on their National Executive for about 6 years. And we lost power in 1973, and Jack Lynch set up a small group to organise the fight back, as he put it, of half TDs and half party. And I was one of the party ones. And we was all over the country, and I learned an awful lot. It also taught me that politics is a mug's game. And during that time, I gave up because I could see that you either had to choose. I had a young family, I had a business, and I was in politics. And you can't do that. Somebody had to go. And if I hadn't got out of politics, the family would have suffered, no question. So I got out completely. And I went back to the PDs when Des O'Malley rang me one time and said, we're starting something, would you come up to Dublin? I want to talk to you. So I did, and then I spent 2 years organising that, and I was on its National Council, and I took over the kind of the southeast for the party. But I promised I'd resign as soon as we had an election. And we had an election and I resigned, and that was the end of it.
And did your man set up the PDs as a result of, was that a row with Charlie Holland?
Essentially, yeah, it was, yeah. I think there was as much anti-high element in it as pro anything else, you know. Anyway, that's a different issue altogether.
I know, but it was probably seen more as what you call it, kind of an enterprise, kind of like...
Yeah, certainly.
Sway from Fianna Fáil or something.
Yeah, it was a bit, it turned out in the end I was not right-wing enough in the sense. It wasn't a right-wing party, but it certainly was a conservative party. And my views tend to be a bit more left-wing. And I wasn't happy, and eventually I just left. I left anyway because I promised I'd leave. Anyway, you don't mean for politics, you don't mean for Waterford history, I suppose.
Yeah. No, but it's just interesting just to hear it. And were you around at that time when was Martin Cullen in the PDs or was it Fianna Fáil?
Martin Cullen was PDs, yeah.
And then did he go to Fianna Fáil?
He left and went to Fianna Fáil.
Oh,
That's right. I was director of elections for that
and when
election.
Fianna Fáil became a minister, he got a ministerial position in Fianna Fáil.
In Fianna Fáil, he did. Yeah. He came very well. He did very well for himself over the years. I heard he was a good guy now, in fairness.
And he did well for Waterford.
He did tremendously well for Waterford. I mean, we owe him a lot. Politics is a very dodgy subject to discuss too.
It's terrible to think that, you still have to have a minister to get it. The whole idea that you have to have a minister from Waterford, like a minister.
Yeah, that's crazy, but it's life. It's the way it is. I'm sure it happens in England, and ask Donald Trump about that sort of thing. Or Boris Johnson. It's human nature.
And just in relation to Waterford, I mean, when you were very much involved in your own business, were you linking up with other, were you involved in the chamber at that stage?
I was in the Chamber of Commerce, certainly, as a member, not a very active member, but I was there. And one thing I did is I was the leader of the Junior Chamber debating team for Waterford. And we won the Irish Championship. And we went on to beat Wales in the semi-final of the British and Irish Championship. And we were beaten by England in the final in London, or in Manchester. So that was a great time. Jack Murphy was in it, from Polebury, Frank Hayes, anyway, there were 5 of us, Seymour Kenny. Anyway, it was that was good. That's way back. I can't, the detail I don't remember. But we did a lot of debating, and debating and politics and all that went together, and I spent a lot of time at that. Probably not enough time at my business, but I woke up to that and came back to it.
Then you're also involved with the Katuli parish.
Yeah, that and I'm most proud of that than anything else. We founded the Katui Partnership because when I was on the National Executive, I realised how much the politicians really pay attention to what the people think, the people in general, no matter what may be said, because they always want to know what do the people think. And also was very aware of the problem of the Third World, which was only beginning to be seen at that stage. This is back now in the 60s. And when I left Fianna Fáil, I tried to put that into practice. And I said the best way to convince people of the horror of the Third World is to personalise it. Instead of talking about the hundreds of millions of people that are dying, you bring it down to a small area and link it to another small area in the developed world and get them to know each other. And the problems of the Third World will emerge to people that way. And we decided that, and we went, 5 of us. I asked 4 people to come to my house to have a chat about it and discuss it, and we did. And it evolved from there. And we set up, first we set up the partnership, the official partnership, which was the Mayor of Waterford came to Katui with us. That was Billy Keneally at that time. And he stayed on the committee then afterwards, in fairness to him. And there's nothing, he didn't gain anything in politics from it. It was a very good thing to do. And we then set up partnerships underneath the partnership, a school with another school out there, or a hospital, or whatever.
So yeah, you had like different companies linked to different projects.
Yeah, factories in the industrial estate like Cromwell and Schubert and people like that, and lots of them, Water Crystal. We first of all we'd go out and we'd talk to the managing director and say, can we make a partnership with yourself and say this hospital or whatever it be. And if they said yes, then we met the unions and we said, can we speak to your members? And they said yes. And then we addressed the members and we tried to convince them, and they nearly always signed up to have a small amount taken out of their pay packet every week. It's a very small amount, but it added up to a lot of money. And that was sent out to Africa once a month or whatever. And the idea was that they would write to each other. There was no easy communications we have today, and they wrote letters to each other. And things were stuck on the North Spur telling you what's happening. So the factory workers and management became aware that they were partners with this project, whatever it be outside, and they got to know the people involved. That was the essence of the partnership. And it started again now in a very small way in the parish of Joseph Benildus, the partnership with a place in Africa.
Was there a priest from Waterford?
Yeah, funny enough, people say, oh, no wonder you went to Katui because Noel Connolly was there. But we found Noel Connolly when we went there. We didn't really know, and he was born around the corner from me. He was born on Francis Road, and I was born in Lower Newtown. But we didn't know he was there even.
So how did you pick that area?
I'm trying to remember now how we spent a year trying to find the area because it had to be right. And I'm not absolutely sure, looking back on it. We talked, I remember going out to London to talk to somebody who made a famous film called 5 Minutes to Midnight. His name has gone out of my head now. But we talked to all sorts of people, and we eventually, I remember interviewing the founder of Concern, who wanted us to partner with them, but he wanted us to come in under his umbrella, which would take away from the whole essence of partnership. But it worked very well, and I'm very pleased with it, you know.
And the partnership went on for a long time, so...
It did go on for about 20-something years, and it gave millions. And really, it came to an end because we saw Katui as a typical third world community. It wasn't any longer because it got much better. Not just because of us. I mean, we were small relative to what was going on, but it no longer qualified as a typical third world, and it probably had run its course anyway. You know, but it was 20 odd years, and it was great. I must say, if I did nothing else in my life, that was the single best thing. You know, it was great.
And I know, obviously, you're very passionate about Waterford and all that. I mean, just before you finish, is there anything you want to say about it? I mean, I know you've said really nice things about the council and all that.
Well, they don't get enough credit. It's very easy to knock them. You know, the people, they do this or they do that. But I mean, in the last 10, 15 years, the things that have been done in Waterford have been really, really good. The museums, and I could go on about it, but I just feel that people should be more appreciative of what is there.
We do attend knockers, knock our own.
Oh yeah, that's pastime in Waterford. I'll have to leave you, I'm sorry.
Okay. Sean, thanks very much.
No, not at all.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
That's it there.